What's up, everybody? This is Jimmy Faluca reporting with Frank. We are back for part two. This is going to be, I should have said at the beginning, this is going to be one of our longer shows because the first two segments we're going to talk about past WrestleManias and then we're going to get into the current stuff. So that way we cover everything because this is our WrestleMania show. Maybe next time Frank and I can record this sitting next to each other instead of over the phone for next WrestleMania. That's what we're going to try to aim for. What do you think, Frank? Think we can get that happening?
Sounds good.
All right. WrestleMania 16. Definitely better than the last one. Better than 15, I'll say. The Triangle Ladder match between the Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian. Wow.
Yes. Stole the show.
Absolutely stole the show. They did 2 years in a row they stole the show.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. That is something that the WWE, TNA, all the wrestling organizations are missing. Hot tag team feuds. And it's not two singles competitors being put into one. Tag team wrestling. I mean...
Yeah, well, I think just all the stars aligned, and we had three of the greatest tag teams of all time. And it was just like every high spot just was genuine, you know? Sometimes, you have matches where there's one high spot after another that doesn't quite have the sizzle to it. But these matches, I mean, oh man, it was just, I mean, it made your heart shudder.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You see that shot of, Jeff Hardy doing the Swanton Bomb off the top of that ladder, and I'm afraid of heights. I got no shame in admitting.
You were just waiting for one of these guys to break their neck.
Absolutely, and you want to know something? They should thank their lucky stars that they are all alive.
Yeah,
that was an unbelievable match. The main event. I watched that WrestleMania main event expecting The Rock and wanting The Rock to win the title. I didn't understand why they did that. I didn't understand the reasoning behind Triple H, winning that match with Vince McMahon helping him, and then him and The Rock traded the belt a few times in the next few months. I really didn't get that.
Well, this was the beginning of the Triple H shovel burying everyone era.
I don't know if he was in the position to bury anyone, because don't forget, Triple H was just given the ball to run with. So, that didn't start for a while. We'll get into that later. WrestleMania 17. I consider the greatest WrestleMania of all time. In my view, it's the greatest WrestleMania of all time. You started the show off strong with Chris Jericho against William Regal. I mean, another guy, William Regal, who I believe is very underrated. Regal is just really good. You could put him in there with just about anybody and he'll make it work. Chris Jericho is Chris Jericho. That's enough said there. I really enjoyed the TLC 2. I mean, the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian, they really, every time they got together, they showed what they could do. They just knew exactly how to, get the crowd's heart in their throat. I mean, with all those high spots, that spear, oh my goodness.
This was an example of the sequel being just as good as the original, and they came. I think they stole the show again.
They did. As far as I'm concerned, they stole the show. It was an unbelievable tag team title match, and again, it was like winning those tag team titles meant something. You're talking about the era where titles. It's like Jericho and William Regal. That was for the Intercontinental Championship. I feel terrible. The Intercontinental title's not even going to be on the line this year.
And of course, we can't forget about the 19-man gimmick battle royal.
Oh my God.
Came out.
I loved the finish to that match of how Sergeant Slaughter put the Sheik in the Cobra Clutch when it was over. Because because at the time I had someone that was friends with my dad show me a tape of Sergeant Slaughter fighting the Iron Sheik. And this is from a long time ago. I never knew that they fought, because don't forget, I got into wrestling when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I.
They used to have the boot camp match.
Yes, because apparently Sergeant Slaughter was a heel, but then the Iron Sheik started showing up, and then Sergeant Slaughter did the Pledge of Allegiance. And don't forget.
And that was also a time with the hostage crisis.
Yes, the hostage crisis in Iran. And I'll tell you something.
US 1.
Sergeant Slaughter, that's why I say he is one of the underrated, one of the best of his time, because he could be the most loved or the most hated. Not everyone can do that. And I think that is a lost art, to be able to be the most loved and the most hated.
Only a few handful have done that, and he's definitely one of them.
Oh, he's one of them. There's no doubt. I mean, when you get death threats and things of that nature, you're something. The Undertaker and Triple H. The very first encounter between the two in a one-on-one pay-per-view encounter. I remember watching that match with a friend of mine in the house I live in now. That was the first WrestleMania that I watched in the house I live in currently. The Undertaker, I cannot begin to tell you just how good that man is. I mean, it's like everything he touches turns to gold. I mean, to know that crowd was behind him, he was back in Houston, where he grew up, where he broke into the business in WCCW with the Von Erichs. Triple H was just such a dick. And that's one thing I will bow down to Triple H for. He has the ability to make me want to take that sledgehammer of his and shove it straight down his throat. He had busted Taker open before that match, and he had to get 16 staples put into his head. The Undertaker and Triple H brawled all over the place. I got to see the tombstone, even though he was the biker, because I was actually telling my friend Christian the other day, when I saw him deliver that tombstone to Triple H, I was like, oh my God, that's his finishing move. Because I was still, don't forget, I've been watching The Undertaker for a long time, and that was always the finish for me. Triple H came that close to beating him, and then he threw a tantrum that is, I have a feeling we'll end up seeing that next weekend when he fails to defeat Daniel Bryan. Because Triple H just knows how to play it off. The Undertaker ended up defeating him, and then we had the main event. And I'll let you take the floor with that one.
This was the second Steve Austin Rock match.
And the best, in my view.
I think so. We had Rock Bottom, Stone Cold Stunner, and they both kept getting up for the finishes.
And I'll tell you something, there wasn't too much blood in that match, but both of them bled. Austin even busted out the old $1 Million Dream in that match.
That's right.
And it was
just amazing. And they kept doing finisher, and they couldn't beat each other.
And Austin, I did not see that coming. The heel turn.
Oh, the infamous shake with Vince McMahon.
Not at all. And Austin even says now, looking back at his heel turn and his heel run, that if he could turn back, he wouldn't have shook Vince's hand. He would have beat The Rock the same way with the chair, and then stunned Vince. Because looking at Austin's heel run, it really wasn't that great.
Yeah, nobody wants to boo Steve Austin.
Listen, there's a big difference between Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, and John Cena. Hulk Hogan and John Cena are the type of guys that are too nice, and that's why the fans started booing them. Steve Austin was not the kind of guy that the fans wanted to boo. Nobody wanted to dislike him. That was a situation where the crowd could have cheered him for years and no one would have cared. Yet people are begging for John Cena to turn heel. What do you say the difference is between them?
It was just, Steve Austin was already what you call an anti-hero, so it didn't look right, him shaking Vince McMahon's hand. That's what made him so popular, him going up against Vince McMahon.
Absolutely, that's what made him. But I'll give him credit for going against the grain. WrestleMania 18, I made it from Canada. Couple of good matches on that card. The Undertaker and Ric Flair. One of my favorite matches in the streak.
That was also a dream match also.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Flair, he took a beating in that match, and The Undertaker was just such a heel. Even Arn Anderson ended up showing up. I remember watching that with my dad and my grandfather. My dad yelled, "The Horsemen are back together!" And then Taker beat the crap out of both of them. I thought that was great. Mark Taker's 10th victory. He, like I said, he just keeps getting better. Kurt Angle and Kane actually had a pretty damn good match that night. in which Angle stole a victory. And I'm sorry I forgot. I should have mentioned it. At WrestleMania 17, Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit had an amazing wrestling match.
Yes, Chris Benoit was having great wrestling matches throughout his career in WWE.
Absolutely. Back to WrestleMania 18. Chris Jericho and Triple H had a title match that very few cared about, unfortunately, because of what they had to follow. We'll get into that next. Triple H and Jericho did have a good match. I was happy for Triple H winning the title. It's weird with Triple H I think Triple H was born to be a heel. That's just my opinion.
Some people just have that look you just want to hate.
He's easy to hate. He's very easy to dislike. And it's because of that attitude that everyone believes he has. But maybe don't forget, perception is reality. And the real main event of that show was the match you mentioned earlier, Hollywood Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. Many believed it should have been Austin versus Hogan. Do you disagree?
Yeah, that would have been the match I really wanted to see. Hollywood Hogan coming from WCW, but I think this match just nobody saw it coming. I mean, the crowd reaction at the beginning of the match, that was just incredible. It was a 50-50.
Oh, absolutely. It was 50-50 at the beginning, but then when the match continued, it was more in Hogan's favor with the crowd.
Yeah, it was incredible how the crowd just.
I'm not a Hogan fan, and when he kicked out of the rock bottom and hulked up, I got goosebumps. Because it's like seeing that Hulkamania start to come back. And when he stuck the finger in The Rock's face, come on, every one of us popped when we saw that.
Oh, yeah, and it was good of how The Rock.
Oh, yeah, he sold it good. Rock doesn't get enough credit about ring psychology. He was good in that ring, and he was good with ring psychology. I have to say, he kept it going. He won the match. He earned Hogan's respect. And, it was great.
Yeah, and the one amazing thing about that match was how at the beginning Hogan was the heel, and The Rock was the popular guy, and
at the end Hogan was They both walked out popular, but Hogan was the more popular.
Right. But it was very, very good the way they played the ball with the reaction of the crowd.
Absolutely. Next we had WrestleMania 19, emanating from Seattle, Washington. One of our guys actually attended that show. Ryan Dwyer attended that show. Show started out good with Rey Mysterio and Matt Hardy. Pretty decent match. Taker came out to Limp Bizkit, which I thought was pretty cool with the American flag, because he had, I believe he had a relative that was stationed overseas. Taker obviously won the handicap match, which I thought was atrocious. As much as I love Undertaker, I can't excuse it. Couple of good matches. I mean, Hogan versus McMahon. I've seen some pretty cool street fights in my life. Cactus and Triple H, both their street fights were great. I've seen some ECW street fights that were awesome, but Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan had a fight that I will never forget.
And you got to hats off to the McMahons, him and Shane. When they get in there,
Oh yeah, they throw down. They don't mess around. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock had their final encounter, and which was Austin's retirement match.
Yes, that's right. And that's I think what took away from the match. Also, he was injured, and he didn't go 100% that match.
No, he didn't, and the match was great. And it's a sad case for Steve Austin, because unfortunately he had to retire. I think if he didn't break his neck, he'd still be wrestling today. Probably not as much. He'd probably be part-time, but I think he would have wrestled a lot more. It's a shame, but you know what? I'd rather him be healthy, because my dad has the same issue that Austin had. He has to get C4 and C5 fused, and it's not an easy surgery. But moving on, Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, a match filled with injuries, but a match that was filled with wrestling.
Yes, and who could forget
the shooting star press? Oh,
where Brock Lesnar almost broke his neck.
But the match that those two had was an amazing match. And the rematch at SummerSlam that same year is right up there with it. I thought it was great. You know, I'm glad Brock was able to get that one main event WrestleMania win, although he probably doesn't remember because he hit his head too bad.
Yeah, he almost broke his neck on that.
No, I know. But that was a great match. And unfortunately, Kurt broke his neck in that match, you know.
Oh, was it Kurt? I'm sorry. Was it Kurt? Who did the dive that they missed? They missed that dive?
That was Brock Lesnar, but Kurt Angle broke his neck in that
really?
match.
Well, I didn't know that.
And Kurt, by the end of, I believe Christian, you know, I don't know if he'll comment on this, but Christian told me that Kurt couldn't lift one of his arms when the match was over. That's how bad, you know, his neck injury was, unfortunately. WrestleMania 20 emanated from Madison Square Garden, as did 1 and as did 10. The show started off with John Cena winning his first championship in the WWE. The United States Championship against The Big Show. I was a John Cena fan at the time. I have no shame in admitting.
Yeah, John Cena, he came out of nowhere, and he slowly made his way up to the top.
Absolutely, he did. We also had Chris Jericho and Christian, which I thought was a pretty decent match, you know, when Trish Stratus ended up turning heel, you know, that night, joining up with Christian. I thought it was a waste for Trish to not wrestle at WrestleMania, because I consider Trish Stratus the greatest women's champion of all time. With all due respect to the fabulous Moolah, Trish was just, you know, unbelievable to watch. She actually made women's wrestling watchable whenever her and Lita would wrestle. I thought it was a shame that those two never had a match at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
that was a good feud. They're the only women's match to ever close Raw.
Yeah, I remember that. They used to actually, like you said, they used to make women's wrestling watchable.
Mean something, you know. And once Paige and Emma and the rest of the women from NXT are in the main roster, and a lot of these Barbie dolls go away, women's wrestling will mean something again. We had the Rock and Sock connection against Evolution.
Oh yeah.
Which I enjoyed. I really enjoyed that match. I mean, The Rock looked like he was in the best shape of his life. Foley lost some weight to get ready for the match. It was Batista and Randy Orton's first WrestleMania, only Flair's third, amazingly. The Evolution was able to pick up the victory. We had the stinkfest of Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, which I would like to try to forget. The only good part about that match was Stone Cold stunning both of them.
Yeah, that was just a
Did not live up to the hype.
Yeah, with both guys were leaving, that was their last match. It was just like it was like nobody wanted to sell that match. It was terrible. They got booed out of the building.
Yeah, and rightfully so. And of course, we had Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle in a great wrestling match, which, you know, it was pretty damn good, I have to say. You know, God bless Eddie. I'm glad he was able to get a world title match out of WrestleMania. It's a shame. If had he lived, he would have been in a second, and we'll get into that rumor when we get into 22. Personally, for me, beautiful night. The Undertaker returned to his old gimmick, and a surprise, Paul Bear. I mean, how do you not get goosebumps looking at that? Those two, after all that time, reunited. I mean, that was just unbelievable to watch on television. To see The Undertaker return to his old school stomping grounds as the Dead Man, raising the lights with his arms, the coat, the hat, the urn. There's never going to be another Undertaker. It's the greatest gimmick of all time. No one could ever compare to him.
Absolutely.
Except maybe the Macho Man, because his gimmick was another one that was great. But The Undertaker, without a doubt, has the best character, the best gimmick, and it's proof positive because the guy's been around since WrestleMania 7. We're heading into WrestleMania 30, and the guy's still going strong, and people still pay to see him.
Yeah. Anybody who you ask, you know, they'll tell you when they're standing in the ring, and his entrance music comes out, they get goosebumps.
Absolutely.
And it's surreal.
He brings that character to life. Nobody else could play that character. And then, of course, we had the main event, which was possibly the greatest triple threat heavyweight championship match of all time. Chris Benoit won the Royal Rumble and earned the right to challenge anyone he wanted for the title, whether it was the WWE Champion or the World Heavyweight Champion, and he chose the World Heavyweight Champion, which was Triple H, who was still entrenched in a vicious feud with Shawn Michaels. And then it turned out to be a triple threat between the three. I enjoyed the match from start to finish. I was pulling for Benoit, and he won. And he was immortalized in the minds of the fans in the closing moments of WrestleMania, being in there with Eddie Guerrero. It's a shame both of them are no longer with us. It's a loss for the business, and it's a loss for the fans who enjoyed watching them. You know, regardless of what happened, you know.
In the ring, you can't question their work, but it's sad what happened. And,
absolutely. Sad on both accounts. But they were both great. They were great hands. Anytime they were in that ring, they were great. And Benoit had a great run as the champion. You know, he had a lot of great matches in that run.
He did.
WrestleMania 21. We had a couple of good matches that night. Started right off the bat with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio in a good match that started a feud that would go throughout most of 2005. We had Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. Unbelievable match. It's just, you know, both of them. Anytime you put those two together, they just make magic.
Yeah,
you know,
honestly, two of the greatest in-ring performers.
Absolutely. When I met Kurt, he told me that he felt that WrestleMania 21 was in his top 5 greatest matches he's ever had, and he said, "I've had great matches. That is in my top 5, no doubt."
Yep, and of course you have Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, who always delivered.
Oh, he always delivers. Always delivers. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2 matches at WrestleMania, he has always delivered. The Undertaker and Randy Orton. If they were ever going to end the streak, it should have ended there.
Yes, that was who could forget Randy Orton's faces, his expressions every time Undertaker kicked out.
What about the chokeslam into the RKO?
Yeah, and it's like, what do I have to do to beat him? And,
no, but when he hit that RKO out of the chokeslam, that had me believing it was over.
Yeah.
And then the finish to the match where Orton went for the tombstone and then Taker reversed it and he beat him, that was great. I mean, Undertaker and Randy Orton ended up having a rivalry for the rest of the year, which it's a shame that doesn't happen anymore, that a rivalry goes on for months and months and months, and it culminates inside Hell in a Cell. Now they just bust out the cell every October, unfortunately, which I think is a waste.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean anything anymore.
It's a shame, and it should. They should increase the value of Hell in a Cell, because it used to mean something. We had John Cena winning his first WWE Championship from JBL. My only problem with the match was JBL beat everyone that they put in front of him. Regardless of how he did it, he beat them all. And John Cena beat him in 8 minutes.
Yeah, well, you know the famous quote, the only reason why JBL was champion was because Triple H wanted 2 days off.
I just felt that match should have been a little longer. It should have been more of a struggle, because how the hell can John Cena beat this guy so easily, but guys like The Big Show, Kurt Angle, and The Undertaker and Booker T, who are all legends, couldn't do it. I just found that a little ridiculous. Batista arrived, defeated Triple H for the World Heavyweight title in an emotional finish. I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the Batista-Triple H feud.
Yes, and we could label this WrestleMania the changing of the guard. We had the 2 new stars, 2 young stars.
Absolutely we can. WrestleMania 22, Edge and Mick Foley had an amazing hardcore match. That spear through the flaming table was just incredible.
Oh yeah, that in my opinion was one of the best hardcore matches
of all time. It wasn't a great match, but I have to mention the casket match for the simple fact that The Undertaker tombstone Mark Henry.
Yeah,
I mean, Jesus Christ, that was an amazing feat of strength.
Yeah, you know, you always think Mark Henry is gonna is this incredible monster. But
I knew Taker was going to win. I just didn't know how. But let me
Yeah.
tell you something. That Tombstone pile driver, to me, I said it that night. He cannot be defeated. I said it like that. Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight Championship in a triple threat match with Kurt Angle and Randy Orton, which is forgettable. The original main event for that was going to be Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero for the World Heavyweight Championship. Because look at the paradigm. They were going to start the rivalry at WrestleMania 21, where they start the show. And at WrestleMania 22, they were going to end it in the World Heavyweight title match. But unfortunately, Eddie Guerrero passed away. And Rey Mysterio won the World Heavyweight title riding the coattails of Eddie's passing. Let's be honest, that's what it was.
Yeah, he started saluting Eddie every time he went to the top rope, and it was also a thank you to Rey Mysterio for all his work in his career.
Oh, absolutely. Rey's a Hall of Famer. You know, he's one of the best high flyers I've ever seen, probably the best. John Cena defeated Triple H via submission, and in there lies my problem. I think he should have just beat Triple H with the FU, not a submission. But that's neither here nor there. WrestleMania 23. Hey, you know what? We forgot the last two WrestleManias. The Money in the Bank ladder matches started. Edge won the first one, and then Rob Van Dam won the next one.
That's right.
WrestleMania 23, Mr. Kennedy, a.k.a. Mr. Anderson, won the Money in the Bank ladder match in a strong showing. John Cena and Shawn Michaels had an amazing WWE title match, but Shawn Michaels looked visibly upset when the match was over. You know, it is what it is. John Cena works the way he works. But to me, the true main event of that night was The Undertaker and Batista. The Undertaker won the Royal Rumble and should have closed WrestleMania. I had a friend of mine, Richard, who was there that night, and he said when The Undertaker pinned Batista, the building shook.
Wow. Yeah, that was a great match. I mean,
Absolutely. But it was the match of Batista's career.
Yeah.
And it immortalized him because no one will ever forget Batista's name because he's part of that streak.
That's right.
WrestleMania 24 was, an emotional night. Nature Boy Ric Flair's retirement from the WWE in a great match with Shawn Michaels. Even I got misty-eyed when that match was over because I have so much respect for Ric Flair. I can't help it.
Who could forget Shawn Michaels saying,
I'm sorry, I love you. I know. It's a tearjerker because it was such a great match. And, I met Ric Flair. And I have to say, he is a once-in-a-lifetime performer, a guy that should have never wrestled again after that plane crash. And, hats off to him for loving the business as much as he does, although he doesn't know when to step away.
Yeah,
but that's neither.
Who have the ability to tell a story in the ring.
Oh, yeah, the matches that Flair's had with Steamboat, with Savage, Barry Windham, Harley Race, and Dusty Rhodes, they will withstand the test of time. And even the matches he had with Terry Funk was amazing. The triple threat match between Triple H, John Cena, and Randy Orton was subpar. Really wasn't that great. Orton got a WrestleMania title, win, even though he walked in as the champion and no one gave him a shot at winning. You had the Big Show against Money Mayweather.
Yeah, who could forget that? On the previous Raw, Mayweather broke Big Show's nose.
That was actually at the previous pay-per-view, but
that's right.
yeah, that got a lot of mainstream attention.
Yeah,
It got a lot of mainstream attention, and Big Show, I feel terrible for the guy. He's kind of the reverse Undertaker. He's very rarely won at WrestleMania, and he's so loyal to the business. And then, of course, we had the main event, The Undertaker and Edge, which, I can't say enough about those two. The body of art that they put together in 2008, all the matches they had were just incredible. It's a feud that started on my 17th birthday in 2007, and it ended in August 2008, and I think that's another lost art in wrestling. The feuds are cut too short. The Undertaker won the World Heavyweight Championship for the second time, and You know, seeing him finally beat Edge after Edge screwed him over so many times was rewarding for me as a fan. It was rewarding for me as an Undertaker fan to see him close WrestleMania again. You know, it kind of made me feel better about the year before that he didn't close with Batista, even though we all know he should have.
When the streak was actually starting to take shape, it was starting to be acknowledged.
Absolutely. And Taker won his 16th WrestleMania match. But anyways, guys, Frank and I are going to take a little break, and we will be back with our next segment to talk about the next 5 WrestleManias, and then we will finish the show off with the card for this year's WrestleMania. Be right back, fellas.